Hi, and welcome back to the channel today. Well, today we're down in the shop. It's too cold to be outside messing with the bees. They're snug as bugs in a rug, but they're in their hive. And we are now going to be doing some work in the new shop. Now, I know it looks a little bit different, but yet a little bit the same. And that's because I just have more space on this side. It's pretty much set up the same way with the way that I work. And all of my tools are old. I mean, there's nothing new about it. It's kind of I have old tools, old rundown equipment, but it still serves my purpose, and that's good enough for me. I'm not going to show you what's on the other side of that wall. That is going to be the honey house, and right now it's just a complete and total disaster over there. One benefit of this shop is I have a fireplace. It's nice and toasty and warm in here, but because it's the basement, it's generally around 55 degrees year-round anyway, so that's not really a big deal. Anyways, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing the one-board build of the hive stands. I know that I've done this before, but I've received a lot of comments, and a lot of people keep asking me, hey, what are the measurements that you use? Well, today we're going to be building the 10-frame hive stand. I will leave all of the measurements that you need for the 8-frame down in the description below. And if you have any questions, feel free to fire them off to me. But what we're going to be doing is we're going to be building a hive stand. Actually, I've got to build 20 of them, but we're going to be building a hive stand from an 8-foot-long 2x6. So a 2x6x8. You can usually pick those up for about between $6 and $8. So it's a very cheap hive stand, but it's a hive stand that's going to last you quite a long time. All you need to build this is one 2x6x8. And I think I have 28 3-inch deck screws. That's what I use. Now, you can use whatever fastener you want if you're a woodworker, or if you have a better way of fastening these. You could use bolts, but that's a little bit more expensive. I'm just using cheap decking screws. It's what I have on hand, so that's what I'm going to use. You can fasten these things together any way that you'd like. I'm just going to basically show you how to cut the boards and put this thing together. Now, as far as what you need in order to do this, I mean, theoretically, you could do this with a skill saw. If you wanted to build it just a little bit differently without all the saws that I have, you could probably use a 2x4x8 instead of a 2x6x8 and just make standard stick legs. I'm gonna flare my legs a little bit, kind of like the Better Bee stand that I purchased a while back. And again, I've shown you this before, and I will throw one up on the bench right now. Let you have a look at the finished product before we start, so you can see what it is that we're shooting for. I've already built 4 of them. All right, so this is the goal. You notice we have flared legs, and then we have cross members here and cross members here. Again, you could do this with a 2x4x8 and make all the same cuts, with the exception of flaring the legs. What I do is I take the 2x6x8, cut it down to, I think 15 inches is what this is. We'll go over the measurements in a second. And then what I do is I measure 2 inches over from the left side on the top, 2 inches over from the right side on the bottom, make a diagonal line, and then make that cut on my bandsaw. And that gives me a nice flared leg. I feel more comfortable that way because it gives my hive stand a little bit more stability, and it's going to prevent it from falling over, which it's not going to fall over even if you use a 2x4x8 to do this. I guess I just want it to be a little bit fancy. It is what it is, but I'm going to show you how I do this. It's a cheap way to make a lot of hive stands, and again, I've got a new bee yard opening up in the spring. I've got to make 20 of these things, so there you go, and there you have it. Let's start with the board. We're going to go ahead and do our measurements. I'll tell you exactly what you're going to need. I've got it written down on my bench here, because I just used a piece of sheetrock right here. You're going to need 2 pieces cut 15 inches long, 2 pieces cut 17 inches long, and 1 piece cut to 20 inches long. Now, again, if you're using a 2x4 instead of the 2x6, you are going to have to double that, because what I'm doing is I'm cutting the 2 15-inch pieces. I'm cutting those in half. I'm taking the 2 17-inch pieces, I'm cutting those in half, and then the 1 20-inch piece, I'm cutting that in half. I'm going to rip those on my table saw. So if you want to build these the way that I'm going to build them, you will require a table saw, a chop saw, or a radial arm saw that is capable of cutting at least an 8-inch wide board, and a bandsaw. You will also need a drill if you want to use it and do pilot holes. I do pilot holes. Some people don't. Some people will just drive these screws right in. You can do that. I'm going to make pilot holes because it's what I feel like I like to do. And then you will need some sort of a driver. This has got the I think it's a T22 star bit on the end of it. You will get the star bit that you need in the box of screws. If you buy these 3-inch long screws, I will tell you exactly what they are. Give me a second. These are Deck Plus lifetime guarantee 5-pound bucket of 10 by 3 inch screws. Ooh, there you go. So this 5-pound bucket, I mean, I use these things for everything. I use them to build the chicken coop, use them on my deck, I use them for everything. So there you go. But that's the hive stand that we're going to be building today. Hive sits up right here. You're going to make it wide enough for a 10-frame box, and we'll set a box on here just so you can see. That is how it's going to fit a 10-frame box. So you have a little bit of room on the sides in case you want to put ant moats or something underneath of it. But it is going to do a good job keeping your hives off the ground. Let's get started. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to cut this board. This is a 2x6x8, nothing fancy, very, very cheap. Like I said, this is pressure treated, probably between $6 and $8 at your local hardware store. Ace, Lowe's, Home Depot. I don't know whether Ace sells boards this big. Some of them do, I believe. Or a lumber yard if you have it. Or if you have your own sawmill, hey, cut one of these up. Then you're going to have the $0 hive stand, provided the tree came out of your yard. Let's get this thing cut up. Again, we need two 15-inch pieces, then we need two 17-inch pieces and one 20-inch piece. If you are using 2x4s and you're not going to flare the legs, you want to double everything that I just said there. And again, I will leave all of this down in the description. Let's go ahead and get this thing measured and ready to go. Use it to mark the next. All right, now out of a 2x6x8, this is all the scrap that you're going to have left over. Use it for whatever you want. Personally, I'm just going to throw it in the fireplace. I know I shouldn't, it's pressure treated, but it's a small piece. It's not going to hurt anything. All right, now, fellas and fellas, this is going to be our future hive stand. The first thing I want to do is cut my legs on the bandsaw, and then we will rip these down. So let's go ahead and get the legs marked. Easy enough to do. Just come 2 inches from one side on the top, 2 inches over on the bottom, some sort of a straight edge. Let's draw a line there to there. One set of legs. The same thing here. 2 inches over on the top, 2 inches over on the bottom. Let's connect the line. Just like so. Let's go to the, that's right through a knot. Let's turn that over. I'm going to turn that over. I'm going to do it this way. 2 inches here. That way we don't have a knot. You gotta kind of play games with the knots here to make them go away. There we go. Now, connect the dots. Good old connect the dots. There we go. Now we should avoid the knots. Let's go over to the bandsaw. Let's get these cut up, and then we will we'll rip these. Okay, now for these three boards, basically all we have to do is rip these in half, and I've got the table saw set up already to cut this exactly down the middle. Let's see how well we can do. I know that I'm going to get some comments down below that say the guard on that bandsaw was much too high. It's supposed to be a 1/4 inch over the wood. I know, I'm aware, but I just want to make clear that you need to follow all shop safety guidelines. I raised that guard so that I could get the shot, so that you could see the bandsaw cutting through the wood. I just thought it would be something neat, but follow all shop safety guidelines. It's not worth it to lose a finger. You don't want to do that. So wear your glasses, so your protective glasses if you have them, and keep your fingers away from the blades, and keep all the guards in place and operate your machinery as it says to do so in the owner's manual. So with all that said, now we've got all that out of the way. Don't do like I do. I'm dangerous sometimes. Now we have our legs, and we're going to start building the hive stand. So the first thing I like to do is drill my pilot holes for my screws. Now I have made myself a little jig so that my screw holes are in the same place every single time. You may not want to use a jig. You don't have to. You can drill them. You don't even have to drill them. You can just run. You can skip this entire step and go right to running these things through your board. You may also use glue if you would like. I'm not using any glue in this build. It would probably be better if you did. Tite Bond 3 would work, but I just don't have enough to do 20 hive stands, so I'm building them all without it. But they are going to be nice and tight, and I think they're going to be okay anyways. We have a 90-degree right down there at the bottom on the square side. I'm going to try to do this upside down so that you can see it in this camera. So if this thing turns out not good, it's because I'm doing it upside down. Okay, so there you go. So on the square side, at the top, I've got a jig set up so that I know exactly where to drill my holes. And what we're doing is, the goal is to get 2 holes per board on the hive stand. So I've got my small drill bit, just a small one, smaller than the thickness of the screw that you're using. And I'll drill these in here really fast. Okay, there's one side. Now, it's important to realize that on your hive stand, you're going to have a left and a right. The screws are going to be going in from this side, so we've got these. Now, we have to flip it over, and we have to do this side. So this is where we want our screw holes this time. Right here. That way we have a left and a right. And before somebody asks me what these measurements are, they're just arbitrary. I just basically spaced it out so that for every board that goes on here, I can get 2 screws into it. So that's what this is all about. There's no specific measurement. If I gave you the measurement for these lines, they would be 5 different measurements or 6 different measurements. You don't want it. The bottom line is we want 6 holes, and you don't have to do that until you put your hive stand together. So let's move on. Okay, so this is something that I like to do. You don't have to do this. You can have your hive stands flush on the top. I like to have a shoulder on the top. So what I do is I take a piece of scrap wood. I think it's 7/8 of an inch thick. You can use 3/4, 1/4, 0/4, whatever you want to do. You don't have to use this. I just like to have a shoulder on the top of my hive stands. So what you will do is you will set that right like so. Make sure that everything is flush on the top. Now, what I like to do here is turn it around. We can take this out, but I'm going to leave it in for right now. We're going to turn this around, and I'm going to run a couple of screws right into one side of it. Can you see that? You can. Okay. I'm going to run a couple of screws into the side just to hold it in place. Just like so. Now, let me tell you something else here. It's also a good idea that if you have a clamp, you can use it. I will run 1 screw in without a clamp and then 1 with. Actually, we'll do one side without clamps, the other side with. That way you can see that it can be done without a clamp. But with a clamp, it's going to be much tighter, and tight is good when you're not using glue. All right, so let's see here. All right. 1. Right, so there's one side. Have a look at it there. We'll flip it around. We will put our piece of wood back up in there, just to make sure we have the right offset. And then we'll run another screw in there. we go. Now that is part of the hive stand. And if you notice, I just ran these down until they were flush. All right, and then we did go through the pilot holes. We have the other holes for the other boards right here. Let's get the other side of this built. We'll do this side with a clamp, just so that you can see bingo, bango, bongo. Here we go. Wrong side. No, that's the right size. Okay, there we go. And I forgot to tell you, the boards that I'm putting in here, these are the 17-inch boards. The 20-inch, the 17-inch board goes between the front and the back legs. The 20-inch board is what's going to run off these sides. All right. Let's start here. We're going to clamp this together. Just because. All right. Let's see here. So we make sure everything is right where we want it. Excellent. Clamp it up nice and tight. We don't need this when we're using the clamp. Go ahead and put one screw in on this side. And one screw in on this side. Clamps are good if you got them. Clamp them if you got them. Now we can remove the clamp. Something else you're going to notice is once you get going, these hive stands go together quick. I mean, they're just fast. I've got 4 of them sitting right here. I'll show you the stack here in a second. But I built those 4 probably in an hour, maybe 15 minutes a stand. It's not rocket science. Once you get going, you get in a groove, you can really start putting it together. Now, we've got part of a stand. I hope you can see it there. See where we're going here now. Important part, we're going to turn this over. Bing. And bing. Now we're going to use our 20-inch board. It's going to go right there. Just like so. And you're going to make sure that it is flush with the cross members that you just put in there. It's going to be hard for you to see this, but this is I'm flushing the end of this board with this board right here. Hope you can see that. I don't know that you can. I will try to make it apparent in the edit. I'll do the best I can. But now, through, you know what? Clamp them if you got them. I got another clamp here. I'm going to go ahead and clamp this so that I can get it tight. Because again, I'm not using glue. So I want to make sure that this is as tight as possible. Now, while I'm building this thing, let's go back to a video from a couple of weeks ago. I do want to do an Ask Me Anything edition. Now, a lot of you have sent questions in, and if you didn't see that video, basically what I want you to do is if you have anything you want to ask me, anything at all, that maybe you don't know about the bug farmer or you want to know, don't leave it in the comments below. What I want you to do is send an email to gabugfarmer@gmail.com, and in the subject line, put the word question. That way, when I go to make the video, I can just run through, do a filter on it, get all the questions out, and then I can answer your questions. Now, in that video, I did say that I might do a live stream afterwards, and I may do a live stream right when I'm done filming this. The only problem with that is that would negate the lesson. But then again, who's to say that you're not going to come watch the video too, right? But back to what I was talking about. Ask me anything. If you have a question, if there's something that you want to know about me, you ask a lot of questions about bees anyway, so it's really not about the bees, it's about me. If you have any questions, let me know. I'll be glad to answer them. I'll give you my insight on anything you want my insight on, within reason. We will steer clear of a couple of things, or I might give vague answers on a couple of things, depending on what the question is. But for the most part, you can ask me anything, and I will do my best to give you a clear and concise answer. Let me get back to building the hive stand now, because this isn't going to get built by itself. Let's get her done. All right. Beautiful. All right, let's flip it around. Rinse and repeat. Remember, the long one. Let's see if I can get a better shot on what I meant by lining those up. So what we want, let's do it this way. You want to make sure that this board is flush with the end of this board right here. Right? There you go. It's not going to be flush with your leg. It's going to be flush with the cage that you're building underneath of the leg. So there you go. Same thing on the other side. All right, so let's get that lined up like so. And if you're wondering why we are using the 3-inch long screws, because we want to make sure that we're getting some bite on both 2x6s right there. We're barely coming out the other side, if at all. I don't feel any yet. All right, look at that. We can almost put a beehive on it right now. Holy moly. Look at that. Now that would hold a beehive. I just don't know for how long. We're going to put one more brace across there. One more. Right here. Bing. And right here. Bing. Pop that into place. And again, it's got to be flush. I'm doing this by feel here. Right there, that feels flush to me, right there. And on this side, well, I can't really feel it without whacking my finger there. There we go. So that looks good. Now, what I'm going to do right there is run my last 2 screws in each side. Here we go. All right, now let's turn it over. Look at that. We've got ourselves a beehive stand. Now, you're probably asking, what am I going to do with these last 4 screws? Well, I'm going to run these last 4 screws into these cross members through the side. So we're going to stick it that away. And I'm going to toenail it basically right down here, through here and into here. Give it a little bit more support just to make sure it doesn't come apart. Without a pilot hole. There's one. Here's 2. Turn it over and do the same thing. And last but not least, the last one. All right, fellas and fellettes, that is a hive stand. Let's set a box on here to make sure that it fits. Look at that. There's a hive stand for a 10-frame box. It's a beaut. It is a beaut. And you can always, if you want to set them the other way, you can set them down like that. They'll fit that way too. I just don't like the super high shoulders. I like the little high shoulders right here. Either way, that is an $8 hive stand that you just can't beat. You can't buy them for $8, primarily because it costs so much to ship the wood. I think when I bought one from Better Bee, you know what? Let's see how much that one from Better Bee was. Let's have a look at that. Oh, there it is right there. Okay, so a 10-frame hive stand from Better Bee that looks just like this. Move the box. Here we go. Let's see if we can get it at the same angle. There we go. Same one from Better Bee. $64.95. I don't know what the shipping is, but I tell you what, it's expensive. Instead of paying $64.95 for this hive stand from Better Bee, and I'm not saying Better Bee is a great company. I get a lot of stuff from Better Bee. I'm not trying to say anything bad at all. It's just that it's expensive to ship wood, but no need to pay $64 plus shipping when you can pay $8, and just however much gas it takes you to go to Lowe's or Home Depot and buy a board for like $8. And then a few screws if you have them laying around. If not, the screws are going to cost you something. But if you're building a few of these hive stands, it's worth the investment. Because I've got, like I said, 20 of these things that I've got to build. They're going to set out in the all weather, snow, sleet, hail, rain, all that fun stuff. And they're going to keep my bees off the ground. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you learned something. I hope it's something that you can use. I know when I first did this, it saved me a lot of money because I think I bought 3 of the hive stands from Better Bee before I decided to build my own. And boy, I tell you what, I'm thankful that I did, because every single hive stand that I've got in the farmyard is a homemade stand. Everything that's going in the new bee yard is going to be a homemade stand. Most of the hive stands in the backyard are homemade stands. You just can't beat it. It is pressure treated, weather secure wood. So there you go, and there you have it. I hope you learned something. Everything you need to build it is down in the description. I will leave all the measurements and everything that you need in order to put this thing together. And again, if you wanted to build this without using a bandsaw, i.e. you don't want these flared legs, you could just put a 2x4 for the legs like so, and they can be straight legs, and you can build the exact same hive. All the measurements are the same. The only difference is you're not cutting the 2x4 down. So there you go, and there you have it. I hope you liked this video. If you did, do me a favor, give me a thumbs up. If you have something to say, by all means, please comment. And don't forget about the Ask Me Anything edition. I really want your questions. Just send a question off to gabugfarmer@gmail.com. I'm not putting the .you-know-what at the end, because then I'll get spam. It'll show up somewhere in a transcript, and I'll get tons of spam. I don't want it. Send me the questions on Ask Me Anything. Just make sure that you put question in the subject line so that I can segregate it from the rest of the email that comes in, and we will try to do an edition where we actually answer your questions. So again, like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you next week. Take care.